What's up, Packer fans? I'm Nariah Chapik, host of Portland Packers podcast. And after surviving the Chicago Bears on Sunday at Soldier Field, we actually get to look forward to the real rivalry that is the San Francisco 49ers. We're going to dissect it all and look forward to it, talk about it, whatever phrase you want to use. So grab yourself a drink. It is time to pour ourselves another Packers podcast. All right, so real quick before we get started, we haven't talked about the last couple weeks. Again, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, comment down below. We have a giveaway. We're over halfway through the season, and we're looking for 1,000 subscribers. Get yourself a canvas of your choice. It doesn't have to be one of these. It could have Vince Lombardi on it if you wanted to. It could have Jordan Love, like Christian's showing off. We'll give that away. At 2,500 subscribers, we're giving away a jersey of your choice. And then at 5,000 subscribers, which seems like a pretty tall task at this point, but hey, if you're committed, I'm committed. Let's give away some NFL tickets. We're going to give away tickets. So I had to plug that real quick. We haven't talked about the last couple of weeks. It's important to give people, give the carrot a little bit, if you know what I mean. But we're here.
A lot of NFL season left. A lot of NFL season left to hit those marks.
A lot of NFL season left for the Packers to hit their marks too, but we're gonna talk all about that. Recapping, as I alluded to in the beginning of the intro, or just the intro, there's no beginning to an intro. Packers pull off a 20-19 victory, and they have survived one of the most stressful games of the season, one of the most frustrating games of the season, in my opinion. But they've won 2 games. Green Bay won 2 games so far this year off of game-winning field goals thanks to Brandon McManus. And they actually now win one off of a blocked field goal thanks to Carl Brooks. It's the first time since 1939 that the Packers have won a football game, walk-off, blocked field goal. What is that, like 90 years? That's a very long time, 90 years.
It's
and
quite
they moved
the stat.
to 11. That is quite the stat.
That's an ESPN.
That's a Packers.com stat. I pulled that from Packers. Wes Hodkiewicz, I think, gave that one out there. And then they moved to 11.
What I meant by that was it's one of those stats that comes like some random stat that comes out of nowhere. Like, how would anybody ever know that they throw up in the broadcast? Like,
that's why I wanted to put it out there. Cause like, what are they talking about? 1939. It was actually, here's the next layer to it. It was against the Cleveland Rams back in 1939. So how's that for a fun fact for you?
Interesting.
Yeah. Last point I will say real quick, they moved to 11 straight victories against the Chicago Bears. And that's it's the longest streak in the entire historic rivalry between Chicago and Green Bay. But outside of your fun facts and your stats and the gut-wrenching performance that was, we're going to do the good, bad, and ugly of this game because we also haven't done that in the last couple of weeks. What were your takeaways from the game, maybe right after the game, maybe 2 to 3 days after for you to digest it all? What is your takeaway after that Week 11 victory against Chicago?
Yeah, I agree with you. It was stressful, a little frustrating. It was just, it kind of just felt like that you were on pins and needles the whole time because the Bears consistently had control of the ball. They drove down the field without issue. And the Packers offense didn't, they didn't have as much chance. The Bears really controlled the game clock. And that was the key point of this game, was them controlling the clock and not allowing Love and the offense to get out there. Because when the offense was out there, they were moving the ball just fine. They scored, they scored on most of their drives, but we'll get to some of that good and bad and ugly. But yeah, I agree. It was stressful the whole way. And I want Packer fans to calm down a little bit. Like the Bears have not been a good football team. And so a lot of people are a little concerned about the Packers' performance against this Bears team. And in my mind, it was a different Bears team. They had just fired their offensive coordinator, and their game plan on offense was much different than what we've seen from the Bears the rest of the season. We talked about it last week about how the biggest issue for Caleb Williams has been holding on to the ball too long. He had that issue back in college. This new offensive coordinator made sure that that was not an issue. They designed all of these plays throughout that entire game against Green Bay to be quick, short throws where Williams did not have to hold the ball in the pocket very long. And then when he did have to hold the ball in the pocket, he got sacked. So it was a completely different offense. And in defense of the Packers defense, they haven't seen film on this offense. They've seen what the offense looked like previously, where he was holding the ball too long and getting sacked a lot. So I just want Packers fans to understand that the performance the Packers put out against the Bears does not necessarily mean the Packers are a worse team than the Bears, or the Bears are all of a sudden a great team. Like, it was just kind of a perfect storm situation for the game to be that close.
You're right on a lot of levels there. New offensive coordinator, you can't plan on that offense and what they decided, because there was a lot more checkdowns than what the Bears had done in previous weeks. They got a little bit more creative with Caleb Williams scrambling. Those are things on film that Jeff Hafley just didn't really even know it was going to be coming. So you're right on that aspect. Also, to the point, it was the Bears Super Bowl. This is such a big matchup for them, having lost 10 straight. They're at home. The Caleb Williams era, it was time for them to give everything they got. And by golly, they definitely gave everything they got. My takeaway was, I don't know why I watch football. I don't know why I enjoy this sport, because the entire time I watch it, I'm just pissed off the entire time I am watching the game, and I don't enjoy it. Like, I'm just sitting there stressed out, slapping my hand on couches and stuff, going, what are they doing? What is going on? Why is this and then they win, and I'm like, okay, I feel a little bit better, but I'm going to do it again this Sunday. Like, week over week, I torture myself, and my entire thought process during the game is, why do I even enjoy this? Because it's stressful. It's up and down, and these games have been so close, and they haven't been performing to a standard, an imaginary standard that we have set for them, or at least I have set for them. But they came away with the victory. I mean, we might talk about this more in overtime, but are they the worst 7-3 team in the league right now? I mean, that's what I was thinking. Like, they're squeaking away some victories here, but they're not. Like, you look at Detroit. Detroit looks good. Like, they're destroying teams. Like, Packers have a long ways to go if they're even going to be able to compete in the playoffs, let alone make a run in the Super Bowl. That was my takeaway, and that's week 11 takeaway from this matchup.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if I'm at that point. I don't know if I'm at the point of saying that they're the worst 7-3 team in the league because of the reasons I just gave. I mean, let's get into the good, the bad, and the ugly, because
I'll get into it.
I was about to talk about what the good was for me, and it was the offense being able to move the ball. This Bears defense, we talked about it last week. This Bears defense is actually fairly decent. They rank, I don't know the exact number, but they rank decently in the league. And the Packers had no problem moving the ball against them. The Christian Watson blew up this game. He had over 150 yards. He had a touchdown, right?
No touchdowns. Four catches for 150 yards even is what he finished with.
Right on. But yeah, Christian Watson looked good, and it just goes to show, like we talked about early on in the season, you never know which one of these receivers is going to have a big game. Jacobs looked good. And I mean, overall, outside of the one play, Jordan Love looked good. So that was the good for this game for me, was the offense being able to move the ball no problem against this pretty tough Bears defense.
So I literally wrote down 3 goods just in case, you were to say any of mine. Oh, don't put a thumb up. And you took all 3 of my goods. So yes, Jordan Love, best game yet. 13 for 17, 261 yards. He had a passing touchdown, a rushing touchdown, and that 1 interception. But he had 4 incomplete passes, and one of them was an interception. That's pretty good statistics. He finished with a QBR of 113. He looked healthy. His best performance so far this season. A lot of upside, a lot of positivity that we can get that second half Jordan Love maybe for the rest of the season. And I agree with you there. Jacobs, he finished Sunday with 134 scrimmage yards. That's 76 rushing yards, 58 receiving yards, and 1 touchdown on the day. Then you already mentioned Christian Watson. He had 4 receptions for 150 yards. And that big one was that 60-yard catch on the final possession, offensive possession of the game, where if you're asking a Bears fan, it wasn't a catch. You're asking a Packers fan, and probably anyone else in the NFL, it was a catch. For sure, it was a catch. He runs 60 yards. They get down into the end zone, and they're actually able to capitalize on that specific drive. So I agree. The good is this offense. Explosive. They only had, I believe, if you don't count their kneel at the end of the first half, they had 6 total possessions, and 5 of those ended up in the red zone. So that's very good. I'm very happy with that. That takes me to my bad, which is the red zone offense. I'll segue to the bad on this one. So as I mentioned, 5 trips to the red zone, 3 of them end in touchdowns. 1 of them ends in an interception, an overthrown on Tucker Kraft. And the second is just Jordan Love trying to rush for a touchdown on 4th down, comes up short. Not very pretty. So yes, the Bears were number 1 in red zone defense. Packers entered the game at 29 in red zone offense. It was really a David and Goliath thing. This was my key to victory heading into this matchup. And it clearly, I didn't make it my ugly. I like that we were explosive, that we made it to the end zone, that we did capitalize on a couple touchdowns. But man, if they can just figure out, they have no problem moving the ball. If they can figure out how to get the ball in the end zone, we start winning some games, and maybe we start winning some of these games by more points. And these are less stressful games, and I can just relax and have my Jello shots. That's my goal in mind, by the way.
Yeah. Yeah. And actually that I did make the red zone efficiency my ugly. So all the same points that you made, it's great seeing them getting the ball to that point, but they got to capitalize. And talking about the interception by Jordan Love, Matt LaFleur even came out and said that was the correct read. It wasn't a poor decision.
Yeah.
It was a misthrown ball. The guy's human. He's gonna, and even on the broadcast, again, it was Tom Brady commentating. So that's always fun. But Tom Brady, it was interesting. A few plays before that, he had pointed out how Jordan Love was keeping his back foot planted and using it for power and zipping the ball in there. Well, then on that interception, he used that same exact point. He kept his back foot down and he just put too much on it. Like, okay, so is that a good thing or a bad thing, Tom Brady? Come on, make up your mind here.
But it depends if you're Tom Brady or not, apparently.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, you do whatever you want if you're Tom Brady.
So yeah, that interception, obviously it was not ideal. I was upset by it, frustrated by it, but I'm not placing too much blame on Jordan Love for the rest of the game, because he did look good outside of that one overthrown ball. And if I remember correctly, it almost looked like Kraft was starting to jump for it, but he hesitated. He hesitated because he wasn't sure if someone was behind him. So if he doesn't,
there was someone behind him.
Well, yeah, right. There was a defender behind him, but
no, Christian Watson was running the seam behind him. So I think Kraft, I haven't seen an interview, but I'm pretty sure Kraft is like, well, that's a pretty high ball. I better not go for it.
Sure.
Maybe he's going for the guy behind me. And that's the game of football.
Well, and what I was going to say is, watching the replay, I don't know if Kraft if he would have fully jumped for it, if he tips it or something like that kind of gets it out of the defender's hands. Maybe something like that happens. I don't know if he was even that close to it, or if it was just that far overthrown.
Right.
But yeah, it was a poorly timed turnover, but it wasn't as bad as some of the other interceptions we've seen this year.
Real quick before you move on, because I had 2 bads as well, not knowing what you were going to say. That ties into the Matt LaFleur. I also have Matt LaFleur's play calling in particular in the bad category for me. And specifically, it's that whole sequence that happened right there. So the Packers are 2nd and 1 on the 5-yard line. Instead of running it up the gut, they do this Jalen Reed end around, and they have an illegal man downfield on a pass play, a quarterback option. That sets them back 5 yards. Now it's 2nd and 6. Reed doesn't end around, loses another 5 yards. Now it's 3rd and 11. And that's when that interception occurs with Kraft. So it was just these were these head scratching moments where we're getting ourselves in these positions to just put this game away. We would have went up 14-3 at that point had we connected in that entire sequence. And the result was the entire game started to just let Chicago hang in there. But Matt LaFleur, he's on my shit list. I'm not giving up on him, but he's on my shit list.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah. It was definitely a little frustrating. And that really was the turning point in the game. If the Packers go up 14-3 at that point, I feel like it's a completely different game, but that gave the Bears a chance to march down the field. And that kind of plays right into what my bad was. So the red zone offense efficiency was my ugly. My bad was the defense not being able to stop this Bears new offense. So I talked about it previously. New offensive coordinator, obviously new game plan for them. Quick short passes, get the ball out of Caleb Williams' hand quickly, screen plays, slants, short passes, and he ran the ball a lot more. You pointed that out, which I can definitely see that being a coaching point from the new offensive coordinator, telling him, hey, you don't have to sit there in the pocket. You have the ability to run the ball. If you don't see anything open, tuck it and run. It's exactly what we talked about with Malik Willis back when Jordan Love was injured. That's the type of thing that the Packers coaching staff likely told Malik Willis. If it's not there, don't hold it, don't throw it or don't try to force it. Just tuck it and run because you have that ability. So the Packers not having seen this offense previously, I understand the Bears being able to move the ball on the Packers early in the game, but after halftime, we really should have seen some adjustment after seeing a whole half of what the Bears were trying to do, and there really wasn't much adjustment. There were points later on in the game where they were kind of spying Caleb Williams a little bit more, not allowing him to get as many chunk runs when he did tuck it, but it just was frustrating, the defense not being able to figure out the Bears offense and stop them.
I know you don't watch a lot of the coach interviews that get posted throughout the week, but
No.
Jeff Hafley brought up maybe a month and a half ago about halftime adjustments, and there's no such thing as halftime adjustments, unfortunately. I think they get is it 10 minutes in between second and third quarter, or 15 maybe between the quarters? But he's like, maybe I get a chance. I usually run to the bathroom, and then I have to take an elevator. I got to stop putting my thumb up. Okay, that's going to get annoying. Then I take the elevator and I get down to the locker room. And by the time I get to the locker room, there's maybe like 7 or 6 minutes left. And then we do like a little hoorah, rah. Here's what, let's get, there's no adjustments at the end of it. And then he has to get back up to the booth. And so I can't blame him. I think, your thinking was where my thinking is too. It's like, okay, we have to figure out that just send the pressure, do something different because he's scrambling all over us. But you just really don't get afforded those opportunities a whole lot. I can't tell. You're wearing those damn victory shades, which I'm happy about, but I can't tell whether or not you're like, you son of a culture, you.
Hey, to that point, with all the bad and ugly that we're bringing up, still got the victory shades on.
Yes, you do.
Still got them on.
So your bad was the defense. My ugly was the defense, except specifically it was the third and fourth down defense that was ugly for me. So Chicago went 12 for 17 on third and fourth down combined. They could not get the Bears off the field. You're right. The Bears owned the time of possession, 36 minutes to 24 minutes. So had Green Bay gotten the ball more, I have no doubt they would have had more scoring opportunities and maybe gotten a chance to really pull away in this game. But we can never get Chicago off the field. Chicago had 5 straight possessions where they had at least 10 plays or more. And then in that final drive of the game where Chicago's down by a point, it's 3rd and 19. Kingsley Enagbare had the chance to sack Caleb Williams and just kind of does this weird little hop and misses the opportunity. So Caleb rolls out and gets the 16-yard completion. And then on 4th and 3, Odunze comes up and makes a 21-yard catch. And they get the ball on the 42nd. That was 2 minutes left in the game, those last 2 plays, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they had a chance to totally redeem themselves. It was back-to-back sacks to start that drive, 2-minute warning. They pick up, they're able to convert a 3rd and 19 after 2 downs. Yeah, the third down defense was very frustrating because, as I've already said, you get that offense on the field and things are going to be a lot better. So that's my ugly. That's where I'm going to put my stake in the Bears game. To your point, the victory shades are on. So a win's a win. We moved to 7-3. And now we get to look forward to the 49ers. Anything else you want to say about the Bears? We'll see them. We'll see them week 18, right?
Yeah. Just a couple more points after what you were talking about.
Go for it.
Talking about the style of the Bears offense. One thing that kept popping into my mind as they're doing these short passes, these dump off passes, I was just waiting for one of the Packers defensive backs to jump one of these routes. And I think if the Bears continue to run that style of offense, that's what you're going to see. Is teams are going to see film from this Packers game and they're going to know what's coming and they're going to start jumping some of these short little dump off screenplay type plays. So I think that changes. Like I said, this is the first that anyone had seen this new Bears offense. So it was hard for the Packers to get figured out. The other point, what are your thoughts on, there's a lot of discrepancy and question marks about that blocked kick.
Yeah. We should talk about it.
Should have been a penalty. I mean, I can understand where some are coming from on it, but I really didn't see a whole lot as far as a penalty goes. It seemed pretty straightforward to me.
So the rule states that you can't line up on top of the center. The Packers did not. And you're not allowed to essentially rush the center until he lifts his head. However, the center can't just hike the ball and leave his head down the entire time. And defenders are allowed to go at it. So, yeah. What the craziest thing about this whole thing is that Eberflus decided to announce that he's sending it into the league. Matt LaFleur all the time says, plays, they send plays in every week for the league to review and to get clarification on all that stuff. It happens every week. But the fact that Eberflus announced that we sent it in the league for review, why? What do you expect to happen? You make yourself look like a fool. I'm going to use the word fool. And it's not going to change the outcome.
It can't.
They're not going to go back on the field and attempt a field goal. The game's over. So I get it.
I read something that the Packers special teams coordinator had. I don't know if he said it or if it was one of the players that was talking about the special teams coordinator talking about this in practice throughout the week. But they had seen on film that it's Santos, right? That's the kicker.
Santos is the kicker and Bisaccia is the special teams.
Yeah. So they had seen on film that Santos's kicks had come out kind of low. So Bisaccia had said throughout the week he wouldn't be surprised if there was a blocked field goal in this game. So the Packers were prepared for it.
They were. Yeah, he said he would be shocked if they didn't have a blocked field goal at some point in that game. It just happened to be the very last field goal.
Very perfect time. The only time they absolutely needed it. So yeah. With that, we can kind of put this one to bed. Packers got to win, no matter how ugly it was. Win's a win. 7-3.
We live to play another day. So let's head over to San Francisco. I do want to touch on injury report real quick before we get into San Francisco. Packers dealing with some injuries, obviously. Alexander left the game on Sunday, did not play the second half. He still has that knee injury, did not practice on Wednesday. I would guess that he will probably not play on Sunday against the Niners, and I would probably guess that he's going to be out a couple weeks. They had that Lions game and the bye week for him to kind of get himself better. It didn't work. I think that we got to really try to get him healthy as we get later into the season and hopefully into a playoff run because he's a difference maker. Cooper was limited. Myers at center was limited. Evan Williams was limited. And then probably as far as on the Packers side, Marshawn Lloyd. News came out last week. He finally came off of injured reserve. You posted on our Facebook page, appendicitis. So even though he's in that window to return, well, on Wednesday, the Packers announced that they are bringing him back, but at the same time, they put him on a non-football illness list as of Wednesday, so he will miss the next 4 games. So we will not see Marshawn Lloyd until week 16 at the earliest. That leaves him 3 regular season matchups, 16, 17, and 18. And then, I mean, at least he'll be healthy, right? But
Yeah.
the wait continues. On the San Francisco side, they're dealing with injuries as well. Nick Bosa did not practice on Wednesday. He's dealing with a hip. George Kittle was limited with a hamstring, but he is adamant that he will play on Sunday. And then obviously Brock Purdy at quarterback dealing with a shoulder injury of some sort. I'd imagine he plays, and Christian McCaffrey was a did not participate. I'm thinking they're just keeping him out for rest. And then Trent Williams, the offensive lineman, he did not participate either. That's their David Bakhtiari on the left tackle side. He's one of the best. He probably is the best tackle.
The best.
Yep. In the NFL. So we're dealing with a few injuries, specifically Alexander, and then San Francisco is pretty banged up too. So it's going to be really interesting. A little bit of a who can go is going to be 100% as we look forward to this matchup. But specifically, let's talk about this matchup. Overall series, little statistics for you, a little bit of ESPN statistics for you. Packers lead the overall series 38-34 and
Really?
1.
Wow.
Yes.
A little surprised.
However, since 2010, the 49ers lead the series 8-5. And in the playoffs, since
more like what I expected.
Yeah. And in the playoffs since 2010, the 49ers are 5-0 against the Green Bay Packers. So they've eliminated us in 2023, 21, 19, 13, and 12. So this, I alluded to it in the intro, like we can talk Bears-Packers rivalry all day, every day. It's historic. But when I think of like rivalries, like I see these Niners matchups, and as a Packers fan, I'm sure the Niners feel the same way. Like we used to, like the Brett Favre mid-90s, early 90s, like we used to own this series handedly against the 49ers. We knocked them out of the playoffs. It all shifted, and now it's us on the receiving end that we can't get over this hump in the playoffs. But in the regular season, we're 5-3 against these sons of bitches. So that gives me a little bit of hope. We're at Lambeau on Sunday. And one thought I wanted to put with this is that I assumed you watched that Kansas City Buffalo Bills game last week.
Most of it, yeah.
Yeah. So this reminds me a lot of kind of what they have going on in the AFC, where
Sure.
Buffalo cannot get over that Kansas City hump when it comes to the playoffs. But Buffalo has been able to beat Kansas City pretty consistently in the regular season. So regular season, I would be fine if the Niners win on Sunday and we can beat them in the playoffs. I'm perfectly fine with that. But we enter this game, we're 7-3, Niners are 5-5. I say throw all the records out the window, because these two teams it's gonna be a battle for sure.
Yeah. Records don't matter at this point, just because of the differences in injuries throughout the season. Excuse me. Sorry, everybody. I've been sick for almost a week now. So, but yeah, the Niners record doesn't really matter at this point because they've got Christian McCaffrey back. That's the number one point to this game. Now, I have seen I was trying to confirm it online, but I saw something earlier today that said that McCaffrey's injury that he was out for so long with, so it was a double or bilateral Achilles tendonitis. And so that's why he's been out most of the season. I saw something earlier today that claimed that injury has only gotten worse, but it had just been so long and it wasn't getting any better. So they basically, from what kind of I read between the lines, is they decided to activate him even though he wasn't 100% better from this tendonitis. I wasn't able to confirm that and find out if that's true, but that's important. I mean, if he's not 100%, then him being back in the lineup isn't as big of a difference. And that same post that I read also pointed out it's very extraordinary for a player to have some significant injuries, which McCaffrey had a few years ago. I believe he had an ACL at one point. I mean, he had a few major injuries that ended his season back when he was with Carolina. It's very
That was back when I played fantasy football. He's the
yeah.
whole reason why I quit, because I would
Yeah.
draft him. He would
Draft
be
him number
out.
one. And fantasy managers have gotten a taste of that again this year. He was active week one, and then he hasn't played since. So this post was saying it's very unusual for a player to have some significant season-ending injuries like that, and then come back and be as dominant and productive as he has been. But now he's older. I mean, he's been out since week one with this Achilles tendonitis in both of his ankles. Is he really the same back that he was last year? So it's kind of hard to say because we've only seen him week one. We saw him last week and he didn't put up all that great numbers. Granted, he's kind of probably working back in, but who knows? Maybe this McCaffrey being back news isn't as important for the matchup with the Packers.
Well, I think you and I both have contributed the lack of success from San Francisco a lot with McCaffrey and his injuries along the way. This team seems to be a different team, a different offense when McCaffrey's not in there. But I did listen to Kyle Shanahan's interview press conference this morning, and as I mentioned, they're 5-5, but San Francisco has had 4 games this season come down to either the last possession or the last 2 possessions, and they're 1-3 in those matchups. His point was, if we're able to put a drive together, win those games, that's the difference between being 5-5 and 8-2. And then you look at Green Bay, they've had 7 games this season that have come down to the final possession, and they're 6-1. So when I say throw all the records out of the window, Green Bay has had a lot more success so far this year at being able to either make the stop when it's needed or put a drive together and capitalize on a game-winning field goal. San Francisco has not had that success. And this is typically a team that has been able, they don't have close games. Like the last 2 or 3 seasons, they're winning games by 10, 15 points a game. They're just not finding ways to win them so far. McCaffrey's back. If he is productive, I think he finished somewhere around 78 yards rushing last week. If he can be productive, if he can be healthy, that changes the dichotomy. But the other wrinkle to this is that at 5-5, they're a little bit on life support too, as far as their pathway to the playoffs. Like they got to start winning some games, and they have to start winning some of these meaningful games. They got Detroit in the forefront that they got to face later in the season. They have to go against other teams in that division again. San Francisco is coming into this game where we got to start winning, and I think that's got to fuel them to a certain extent to show up. And we know that we're going to get their best effort, but I think injuries is a big component of how this game's going to shake out.
Yeah. And talking about their close losses last week, their loss to the Seahawks, that was maybe one of the biggest surprises to me this season for the Niners, losing a game with the news of McCaffrey being back. And, again, you mentioned it. We talked about it. The Niners struggles we attribute to McCaffrey not being in the lineup. So when he was back, we both picked the Niners, right, in that game. That I fully expected the Niners to look more like they did last season with McCaffrey kind of taking over and dominating. But the Seahawks were able to, Geno Smith put the team on his back and got it done. So I was very surprised that the Niners took a loss last week. But yeah, they definitely are in win now mode. They can't dilly dally if they want to make playoffs, which I'm sure they do. I'm sure they kick it into gear, but Packers have to be able to stop that. If Packers are going to be, a playoff Super Bowl contender team, they got to beat teams like this.
And for the third and probably final time, I'll talk about throwing records aside, just to put a little bit more context behind this. So the 49ers season stats, they're second in overall offense on the season. Green Bay is 4th overall. At points per game, both teams are putting up 25 points a game. The Niners defense is 6th in total yards, while the Packers is 15th in total yards. And the Packers have taken away the ball 14 times. San Francisco's taken away 13 times. Or excuse me, given it away 14 and given it away 13. And then the Packers have 19 takeaways on the season. The Niners have 16 takeaways. These are like statistically, these teams are very similar, even with a banged up like 49ers. Again, if they're healthy, I think that we see a much better Niners team, but we also need to expect a much better Packers team. LaFleur did nail down in his press conference this week that red zone offense is going to be a priority. We got it. We can get the ball down there. We just got to capitalize. And I almost feel like I'm speaking out of two ends of my body here. I don't know if that's the saying because it's not. But
both sides of your
last
mouth.
week, there you go. Last week I said LaFleur needs to get more aggressive, and he did. He got more aggressive, and it was a 1-point victory. Had he settled for field goals, maybe it's not as close. It's a 7-point game versus a field goal winning game, or it's an 8-point game. So I don't know. This is why I just watch and complain and drink at the end of the day.
Yeah, it's hard to know what the right balance is with that being aggressive or taking the conservative route. It's different each game. So,
well, I got 4 keys to victory.
4.
So I'm gonna let you go
4
first.
more than I have.
Well, there you go. Well, I'm going to let you go first because I'm going to cherry pick one of these off my list.
Oh, man.
If you happen to say mine.
Okay. You're going to have to give me a second here. I got to gather my thoughts. So for my key to victory this week against the 49ers, it kind of plays off of last week. I think the Packers offense really needs to continue to be efficient on offense. They moved the ball just fine against that Bears defense. And I believe the Bears defense ranks better than the San Francisco defense has this year. San Francisco's defense in the past has been very strong, but this year they have not played as well. They have some big names on that defense, but they can be scored against. They give up a decent amount of yards. So I think as long as the Packers offense stays efficient, because we know that the Niners are going to score. They have a lot of weapons. They have an efficient offense. So it's not going to be a surprise that the Niners are going to score. Packers need to be efficient, and they need to finish in the red zone like we talked about before.
All right, so we're saying red zone offense. I have Jordan Love written down as maybe a key to victory. You're just saying the whole offense in general. I'll take it. I'll take my 5th option that I came up with while you were thinking about that. I think I'm going to say time of possession. So the reason I will say time of possession, because as I alluded to, these teams are both very evenly stacked. If San Francisco controls time of possession, they're going to definitely control this game, be able to put more points on the board, or at least limit that Packers offense from putting points on the board, just like we saw against the Chicago Bears. So it boils down to the defense being able to not allow 10 play possessions. And it boils down to the Packers being able to convert on 3rd down and then hang on to the ball. If we can win time of possession by 6-7 minutes, I think that we can control this game and come away with the victory. So extend drives and keep San Francisco off the field. That's your John Madden key to victory. Let's head on over to score predictions. Depending on where you look, the Packers are somewhere between a 1.5-point favorite to a 2-point favorite against the San Francisco 49ers. And I don't know if you have your score prediction yet, but the last 3 times that these teams met, I'm just full of stats tonight. They've all been decided in the final possession of the game. The last 3 times they met, final possession of the game.
That includes playoffs?
Yep. 23 playoffs. Jordan Love throws that interception to end the game. Game over. 21 playoffs. Robbie Gould marches down the field at Lambeau and kicks a game-winning 45-yard field goal to win 13-10. And in the 21 regular season, Mason Crosby puts together a 51-yard game-winning field goal to win that game. So if there's anything that you can take away from the last 3 matchups, it's probably going to be a close one. But for me, I do think it's close. I just came up with this weird score. I don't know how the Packers are going to score 25, but I'm going to give them 25 points. I'm going to say they win 25-21. And it's not a field goal situation. It's the Packers defense needing to stop San Francisco from marching down the field and getting into the end zone. So 4-point victory, 25-21 Packers. How do you score 25 points?
Oh, I'm sure it's not as difficult as you think.
Okay.
I mean, let's put it together.
3 field goals and 2 touchdowns. That's how you do it.
Yeah, that's easy. That easily happens.
That's 23 points. That's how that
9.
14 plus 9, 23. Damn it. Let's not get into the thick of it. Give me your score prediction, Christian, and we'll circle back around next week.
Well, my score prediction was actually super close to where you're at, but the way in my head, the way it happens, kind of based off of the stat you just gave, these last 3 matchups being decided on the last possession, I'm going to go Packers 24, Niners 21.
Okay.
Game-winning field goal. Brandon McManus.
You're like, are you 2 for 2 on your game-winning field goal predictions? Call my shot. Yeah. Well, hope you're right. Well, we're going to kick it over to overtime. It will be a shorter and much more condensed overtime this week. Our rankings, score predictions, maybe a topic or two if we will. Thanks for checking out the video. Again, subscribe if you have not subscribed. Comment down below what your score predictions are, what your key to victories are. And as always, until next time, Christian and myself will see you on the internet. Thanks for watching.
Go Pack, go.